Hello and welcome to this segment of Kernels. These are ongoing series of short continuing ed videos from the State Library of Iowa. I'm Maryann Mori with the Central District Office of the State Library, and I'm joined today by Carol Weihe, who is the Library Assistant at Pella Public Library here in Iowa, and more about her in just a moment. First, some background about Kernels. Each installment is a quick pop of professional development that gets right to the center of a library program, service, or methodology applied in a public library setting. Kernels feature library staff discussing their work so that other in-practice librarians can learn from their experiences. You'll find Kernels posted to the State Library's Continuing Education YouTube channel. There's an entire playlist there, and we hope you'll circle back to watch any of them at any time. It's a growing list. We're always adding to it. These videos are also cross-posted inside Iowa Learns, our learning management system, where Iowa librarians can watch them for CE credit. So let's get on with today's segment of Kernels. Again, my guest is Carol Weihe. And Carol, you did an interesting program at your library, at Pella Library. And when I heard about the idea, I thought, oh, this is so fun. I want to share this with other librarians. What did you do at your library?
Well, we issued an upcycle challenge to local artists and patrons where we gave them a bag of materials from our library that many people might discard. Some could have been recycled perhaps, but other things like receipt tape rolls and things had artistic possibilities. So we gave them a bag of stuff and said, please create something, and they really did.
Nice. So you saw some artistic value in these things that most libraries just discard right off the bat. Do you have an artistic background, or you're just a super creative person, or what gave you this idea?
Right. Well, actually, a little bit. I originally am a quilter, but then once I moved to Pella, I started attending classes at our local art center and became an instructor there. And they are just amazing, where you can donate anything there, and then you meet with the students and throw it out there and say, let's create something. So I developed that kind of mindset that, look at that, somebody could make something out of that. And so nice. I knew there were possibilities. And so at some point, instead of donating stuff to the art center from the library, I thought, I wonder if we should save some of this and do our own thing.
Nice. Well, we have a few slides here to share, so let me pull those up here just a moment. Okay, so here we go. I want to start off with a definition of upcycle, just so we're clear what we mean by this. And Carol, this is the definition you used in some of your programming announcements from the good old Merriam-Webster dictionary: to recycle something in such a way that the resulting product is of a higher value than the original item, to create something of greater value from a discarded or lesser value item. Basically, this is the concept of the old saying, from trash to treasure, right?
Correct. Yep.
Had people in your community heard of this term before? Were they familiar with it, or did anybody comment, oh, that's neat, it's different than recycling, right?
Well, okay, so I'm kind of an environmental type myself, so I'm very particular about the terms. So all the time I worked at the art center, we never used the word upcycle. We just were using collage items and making stuff out of them. So when I originally introduced this idea here, someone mentioned the word upcycle and that we would call it an upcycle challenge, a year or two ago. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good term for that. And so nobody talked about recognizing the term, but we did have a few people in their artist statement talk about recycling items in their project. And I was thinking, well, no, that's not what we did, but it's close enough. You know what I mean? Where recycling would be taking it and, melting it down or something and creating, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so people embraced it. We had a very, very positive response to it.
Good. And just to give our viewers a little background about your library, Pella is located in the northeast corner of Marion County. So you are part of Central District. You have a population a little over 10,000, so you're an E-sized library, which makes you on the larger size by Iowa standards. But don't turn off, viewers. I want you to know that this is a program that any size library can do. And best of all, hear this. this is a free program. It is free. So we feel like we have information to share that will be a good thing for all size libraries. So stick with us here. We've got some cool pictures to show you. So Carol, you started saving these, for lack of a better term, library scraps, library leftovers. And we have a picture here of a drawer full of those. I assume that's one of your desk drawers. Maybe that's how you started saving things.
It is, yeah. After I started working here, I noticed that certain things were going in the garbage, particularly the receipt tape rolls. And that kind of really bothered me, having worked at the Art Center and knowing that that was like gold, like there are many things you could do with those. So I mentioned this at a staff meeting once, and we quickly established a drawer just so everyone would know that was a place to put things. So there it is. And every so often I sort through it and donate stuff to the Art Center or put them in a box to store downstairs. We do this with plastic bags too. I often saw plastic bags getting thrown in the garbage because they had a hole. And I said, well, let's not do that. Those are recyclable. So let's use the drawer for that as well. But yeah, you can see the things in there. So if we have a broken CD case, won't close anymore, the plastic's ripping off the front, I tear that plastic off, break it into, break the components down and put them in this box or in the drawer, knowing that they're resources for the future. So.
And you outgrew the drawer and you ended up with boxes of stuff. How long did it take you to save up a considerable amount of material that you felt was enough to do this program?
Well, I think what shows in the pictures in the boxes is about 2 years worth, although I had proposed the program a year earlier and it didn't quite take off then because of other programming. But yeah, probably about 2 years worth. And I didn't save everything. Like I didn't save all the CD cases or DVD cases because we end up with a lot of those as scraps.
Now,
but as you were saying earlier, some smaller libraries may not have all of these things. So what I didn't use at all, that we seem to have a lot of, and it's not considered waste to us yet, but so if you have audiobooks, we tend to get a lot of the little pages that you put inside, books on CDs, because you replace the case and it has new pages or whatever. So we have, a whole box of just those kinds of pages. We have, inserts for DVDs. We have broken CD cases where you can't, put a new insert thing in there, a new cover on. But yeah, so there's a lot of things you might already have around that you're just holding on to that aren't necessarily waste right now that could be considered for this program.
Yeah, and we have some ideas later in this session for smaller locations that might feel, oh, I could never save up that much stuff. Some suggestions on how you might be able to get enough stuff to be able to do this kind of program to replicate it at your library. So you tied this event in with Earth Day, which takes place every year on April 22nd, and you timed it so that the creations would be returned in time to have them on display at the library during Earth Day.
Correct. Yep. We had the display up the entire month of April.
Nice. So this was actually a good partnership because you did partner with your community arts center, and you're fortunate to have such a location right there in your town. And did that come about because of your involvement at the arts center, or did they find out what you were doing?
Right. Because I invited, originally back in January, I invited every type of artist in town that I knew of. I invited all the teachers. I invited, art teachers from the high school, the middle school, the elementary schools, the college, and the ones at the art center, both ones that I had worked with and ones, that were previous teachers and ones that were current teachers. And through sending out that email, the community center, art center contacted us to say, what if we hold a few work sessions? So if people don't know what to do with their materials, they could come and work, at these sessions and use our glue guns or, whatever.
Very nice. And I know later you had a teacher at the local Christian school there in Pella contact you and ask for the art students there to be involved too. So I think you've kind of alluded to this fact, but you had phases of this event, as I understand it. You first reached out to the artists and then to the schools and then to the general public. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I would say the schools were included with the artist because I contacted all the teachers. So I contacted 22 teachers total, and or just people I knew in town who created art. And then I actually had, out of 22, I had 16 respond pretty quickly saying, yes, I would love to do this. So I don't know if it was the perfect time, it was still January, we were still locked up a bit, people weren't doing whatever, it was winter. And so, and the one of them was the teacher from the Christian high school, and she had a class of 7 seniors, and she wondered if she could get kits for them to also create. And that was enough of a timeline for her to work it into her curriculum. So I guess asking early enough is a good thing so that they have time for that. But yeah, ultimately 13 of the artists completed a project and turned it in out of the 16 that said yes. So I feel like that was a really good return rate. And yeah, so I asked them first because I wanted to make sure we had participation. And someone I consulted early on had said, it'd be great if you had examples to show people. And I really did search online for this type of thing, for using waste office materials for art projects. And all I could find was, oh, take a whole package of sticky notes and make this mosaic. And I'm like, well, we're not really getting rid of our sticky notes. We don't want to throw away a perfectly good arts or, office supply. We want to use the things that you're not going to use anymore. So I thought by contacting real artists, so to speak, they would create my examples for me in a sense. And they
Very
did.
Nice. Now, for those viewers that maybe live in a smaller area that you're thinking, oh, I don't have a school in my community, or I don't think I have any artists in my community, stretch your borders a bit. Think outside your immediate city lines and go into your county. Partner with some other libraries to do this as a county-wide program. So you issued the call for work to be submitted, and this was your press release, and you have the definition there of upcycle, and you do note that this is a good partnership between Pella Public Library and Pella Community Arts Center. You had 2 categories in this general extended invitation here, those 14 and older who were going to complete the project and actually return it to the library. But then you had just any age, anybody could pick up a kit and just do this for fun at home too, right?
Correct. And the difference really was in how much they got in the kit. If the original 16 artists got a more extensive package of materials, the ones who committed to returning it got, a reasonable amount. And the ones that just wanted to try it, they were a little bit later. We didn't maybe have quite the diversity of materials left, like the floppy disks that went in some of the early ones. But enough things to give it a try.
Nice. And you had an application. This probably was more for the artists, I assume. And you do state on there this wonderful partnership with the Arts Center that they offered 3 different sessions that people could bring their kit and maybe use a few supplies from the Arts Center there and the workspace, and have a social event with it too, and work on their projects. I think that's just wonderful that the Arts Center wanted to do that.
Yeah, and I don't know how many people did that. I know at least one of the sessions was canceled, but if we did it again, it could possibly be integrated better. You never know how the word gets out about things. I think every library and organization knows you can send information out into the world, but it's always a mystery where it goes and how it reaches people, specifically.
You have a spot on this application for comments about your upcycle creation. Was that to describe what they were submitting, or to describe their experience with this and their thoughts about the program?
Yeah, really all of that, sort of like an artist statement, either to speak about the symbolism in their project or to talk about challenges that they faced when doing the project. Whatever they wanted to tell us. We printed that out and we put it in the display with their piece.
Nice. So this is what a kit looked like. You bagged up material, and you have an example there on the left of what might have been included in a kit. Is that representative of what might have been included in an artist kit, the more extensive one? So did you measure like how many pieces each one got, or did they all have very similar pieces? How did you do that?
that was pretty much exactly what the 16 artists got. And the 7 students got from the Christian high school got very close to that as well, except there's that really interesting triangle piece there you might see on the left. And those were from a long ago packaging thing that I happen to exactly have 16 of those corner pieces. And it's so fun to look at what came back and figure out how they all used that piece in it. And they also got the floppy disk, which not many others got. But yeah, they got that. And what the directions say is I gave it to them in a bag because I didn't want to create more waste by distributing these. So I put them in a plastic grocery bag. I printed out most of the instruction sheets on the back of some already printed sheet of paper. So again, not wasting paper. And I say, you can use this paper in this bag in your project. So it became part of the upcycle
Nice.
item. Yeah.
Well, here's one of the samples. This is from one of the artists, I believe, correct?
No, this was actually a student at Central College.
Okay.
So one of the artists had her as a student, and she expressed an interest, so she gave her bag. And yeah, she actually did what not many others did, where she took a book that was being discarded from I think the middle school library. So this book about butterflies and moths, and she incorporated images from that with her materials. And that was one of the suggested things you could do.
Nice.
Yep.
This one just steals the show because it's a windmill, and of course there has to be a windmill in Pella, because those of you that may not be familiar with the community, it is a Dutch settlement and has windmills all over the place, including inside your library. So this is kind of neat. And as I was looking at this, and you can probably decipher what all the parts and pieces are more readily than we can, but just looking at it myself, not knowing exactly what was in the kit, it looks like the base might be an old floppy disk. I see a cut up CD for the blades, and maybe some leftover sticker backing, and the foundation of the building part of the windmill looks like it's old card catalog or pocket cards out of books.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of neat.
Yeah, this was a landmark one. This was like the 3rd one we got. This is Jeff Portinga from the Christian grade school and middle school. Because so the bottom base is actually a DVD case. So if you get the kind of the scale from that, half of a DVD case. And when I saw those blades, each of the blades on the windmill is 3 pieces of CD, perfectly cut like that to form them. And I said, how in the world did you do that? Like, that's just so neat, because CDs crack, right? They whatever. But what he said, from being an art teacher all these years, you soak a CD in hot water, even like boiling water, but just very hot water, and then it cuts just like, cardboard or whatever. So
interesting.
Yeah, I made sure to spread the word about that. I actually employed that same technique in mine. I didn't make a windmill, but I made sure I found soap, even putting the scissors in the water with it and cutting it, keeping it hot while you were cutting it worked. So what that did is make a CD almost like just a piece of paper. You know what I mean? It's like now you can cut it any way you want and get any shape you want out of it. And that was the case, for DVD cases. You're right, I had the library card you used to stick in the back of the book that you stamped on.
Mm-hmm.
There's some kind of little card that tells the name of the book and stuff. I'm not exactly sure. But the stickers are, I don't know about anybody else, but at our library, we get these circles stickers that fit around the hole in a DVD or a CD that says Pella Public Library. And then there's always the middle left, like the donut hole of the sticker. And I've like never thrown those away. It's like, no, just put those in the drawer. And and yeah, it was fun because he tried to use every single one of them. I think he had just stickers in all sorts of places on there. But you can see he used that triangle piece that I mentioned before at the top of his windmill there. Okay. So that was very fun. Yeah, this made us very excited.
Yeah. And this one is super creative, and I'm sure this one appealed to a lot of the kids that came into the library to view these. And we can see more DVDs, some empty tape rolls. These I can't think what these
receipt
pipe,
tape rolls.
pipe things are called on a car, but yeah, they're old receipt
yeah.
rolls that were cut.
Yep.
Really creative.
Yeah, he is actually an artist who works in metal a lot. He uses scrap metal stuff and creates things just like this. So when he saw this, he did one and he came back and said, "Can I have a second bag? Because I have another idea." And then he did the second one. But what I mean, I love everything about these. And what I really love is if you look at the wheel on the one in the foreground, he fussy cutted the instructions to have library upcycle challenge in there. So that just made me so happy.
Yeah,
Not
I
only
see
that
that now, that rear wheel back here on
yeah,
the big one.
yeah.
Do you have this artist's name? I didn't have that information.
Corey Spencer.
All right, just give him a shout out here.
Yep, Corey Spencer. He's amazing. Yeah.
And your library has this wonderful display case. So you filled it with all of these different creations. And as you said, you had this on display the entire month of April. And I'm sure people oohed and awed over a lot of it. And this is, I think, some samples maybe from those art students at the high school. That
most of those are from the art students. The big purple flower up at the top is actually a 4.5-year-old who did the challenge with her mom. And I asked her about it when she brought it in. And I was like, is that the first thing you thought of when you saw all the stuff? And she nodded. Yep, that's what I thought of. And of course, she liked pink and purple, so she made a great big flower. And then down at the very bottom, you kind of see the toilet paper roll that looks, I don't know, almost like a gun. Yep, that one. That's a girl, I don't know, she was like 8 to 10 years old, and she made a little cash register thing for her little brother to learn about
and
going to the store. So that's
it's like the scanner. Okay.
Yeah, scanner. And then so we had some little ones, but most of the other ones are from the high school students.
And this one sitting here, I have a close-up of it here. I think this is so pretty, and it's pretty obvious it's made out of old DVD cases and CDs, or DVDs as the case might be. Really pretty, I think.
Yeah, this pleased me so much because she used that clear insert for a DVD's case and painted on that, but then also painted on the materials behind it to kind of create the 3D effect. And she did a great job using the materials. So it's interesting. So she used them complete so that you can see the whole DVD case and the whole CD, and she used those very well, whereas others used those as raw materials and cut them up into other things. So either was perfectly valid.
So I mentioned that we would have some tips for how you can do this at your own library. And I suppose the first rule would be just start saving stuff, right? Just think about that stuff before you toss it in the trash. Just give it a second thought and go, what could be made out of this? And as I mentioned earlier, if you're a small library and you don't generate a lot of waste, talk with some neighboring libraries or ask other city departments or local businesses and offices if they would save stuff for you. Definitely have a designated place to store the stuff. You didn't say, Carol, I hope your colleagues were fine that, there's Carol's box of junk.
Yeah, they actually were really, really good all along about it. But I admit they were supportive, but at first kind of like, oh, okay, I can see people might make stuff out of this. And the first things that came in were the motorcycle and the sports car. And then the next thing that came in was the windmill. And they were just all like, oh my gosh, okay. They
real art.
They had not seen exactly the potential, but now I think they save things more enthusiastically, like, look at this, can we use this? And like, yep, let's put that in the drawer, beyond just what we had put in there before. So
maybe you should do a library employee challenge. And
wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, it would be. I think about partnerships. You partnered with an arts center, with the schools, with local residents who are artists. So think about what might be in your community. Again, perhaps not in your immediate city, but within your county or in a neighboring town. Determine the type of program. Is this something that maybe you'll let them come to the library and do this together as a group, and whatever they make there, that's what they take home? Or the take and make like you did, pick up a kit, do this on your own time and bring it back to the library. And I think it's definitely wonderful to have a display area for the creations. Now, not every library has such a nice display case like you do, but I think most every library has some shelving that may have slightly tall enough that you could put something up there that people wouldn't mess with it, but yet they could still see it, or a special table area where you could keep the displays, but have those on display so people can kind of show off their work and so other people can benefit from viewing it.
Yes. Yeah, and that was my plan when, if we had too many, I thought, well, I don't think that's a problem. And we could just expand on top of shelves. Or one of the early questions was, is there a size limit? And I was like, wow, what are they going to make? And I'm like, well, we can set it somewhere. It's going to maybe go in the display case, but if you bring in something bigger, then we'll figure it out. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that since we're talking about this concept of upcycling, that I would share a few other ideas I found from other library sources that tie in with this, that might give you some tips, you, the viewers, some tips on how you could incorporate a variation of this theme. Public Libraries Online, which is a publication of Public Library Association, had this interesting article, this program mentioned in 2019, one of their publications. And this was a partnership with Miami-Dade Public Library, which is in Florida. They have their seniors come, and the older members of their community come and socialize at the library while they make sleeping mats from upcycled plastic bags, such as the ones you put your kits in, Carol. And then they take these sleeping mats and they distribute them to people who are experiencing homelessness. So that's what the article is saying. It's meeting the needs of two community groups. The seniors are socializing, and the people experiencing homelessness are receiving something that can help them in their time of need.
Right.
And this coming from the Programming Librarian, which is a wonderful resource for programming. This was about a librarian who collected old jewelry, easily found at yard sales this time of year, during the summer, and would cut up the pieces and use the different parts and pieces from old jewelry, particularly old costume jewelry, and recreate new pieces. And you can see the quote here: "This fun program requires very little skill and can be done for little to no money." Yay, that's a win-win kind of program for public libraries. So we do have links to these sites that we'll provide with this recording. There's something known as a Thrift Flip, which I had not heard that term used before, although I was familiar with what it is. And that's where you go shopping for your clothing at a thrift store, and then you personalize it. You do something to it to transform it into your look, your wardrobe. And this is a book list from Chicago Public Library that includes books that are all about upcycled fabric and clothing. So I've included this link so that you can look to see what kinds of titles they have here, and maybe consider some of these for your library, or interlibrary loan some of these to get some ideas on what you could do for programming at your library. This is a Pinterest page from the Orem Library, which is located in Utah. And you can see that it's all kinds of stuff done with books and library themed upcycle. So I do know that a lot of libraries take their discarded books from the collection, their weeded books, and will turn those into art projects as a program at the library. You can see there, third from the left, there's a wreath hanging on the wall that's made from pages out of a book. So those types of programs are definitely an upcycle type of program that you can do with all those weeded books that you're not sure what to do with. There are plenty of YouTube videos about upcycling, especially if you want to create jewelry or new fashions. So those could be of use for you and your patrons. And then this kind of ties in with this. I am seeing this done more often at libraries, at public libraries now, swap shops. And you can see this is an example from Oakland Public Library in California. It's a great way to help your community if you have the space to do this. Maybe you could consider doing it just one time, or partnering with other agencies in your area to store the items or display them for the event. But this is where people bring in and swap toys or clothing, or you could do kitchen items, tools. You could just maybe books, swap books, or swap video games. I've seen that done at public libraries. So consider a swap shop type of thing. And then Orland Public Library, which is in Illinois, they do a craft swap, so that people who are big crafters, maybe they have leftovers from projects they've done and they have too much yarn left, and what they really need is some scrapbook paper instead, and they can come to the library and swap with other crafters, and also have the opportunity to meet people in the process. So think about these ways that your library can participate in upcycling. So Carol, what tips do you have for a library that may want to do this themselves, or do you plan to do this again in the future?
I hope we can do it again in the future. I don't know what the cycle would be for that, or, you know, as people's lives get more busy, if they'll be interested like they were this time, but I hope we can. Tips would just be, well, what I did is just contacted a couple people I know who have taught art and are friends, and just kind of ran the idea past them and ran my directions by them, just to say, does this sound like something, you know, if I sent it to an artist, like they would think, oh yeah, that's a cool thing, you know, or reasonable, like something an artist would do. And they kind of approved it, and get an early start on it. Like I said, give them a month or 2 or 3 advance notice on this. Some will do it right away, some will wait until the very end. And just don't be concerned, like Maryann was saying, it's very low cost or no cost, but also I'm just very part-time in doing the programming. So I just kind of fit it in, you know, typing up the artist statements, filling the bags, you know, printing them out. So it can take as much or as little time as you want, I guess, you know, depending on how polished you want the display to look or whatever. It can be very easy. Yeah.
That's a good point, because those smaller libraries that have very limited staff, sometimes solo librarians, this is very possible for them to do if they do it as the take and make, because you don't have to facilitate anything. You just prep these bags in your spare time, and when you have them all ready to go, then you let people come and pick them up. So it's very possible to do this type of program in any type of library, any size library, I think.
I would say so, yeah.
All right. Well, Carol, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful ideas, your upcycle program at Pella Public Library. And thank all of you for watching this Kernels session. And remember, if you want to earn CE credit for watching, then log into your Iowa Learns account, watch the video there, and complete the evaluation. Otherwise, you can watch any of the Kernels on our YouTube channel and share them with your other staff or library trustees. If you have something to share from your own library, a program, a new initiative, something to add to our assortment of Kernels, please contact us and let us know, because we want to hear from you. We do have some links to those sites that I had shared in the slides, and Carol's contact information. We'll have that all available for you as well with this recording. So thank you, and thank you again, Carol. Bye.